Most people won't lose their home in a disaster. They'll lose the one item they never thought to grab, and they'll feel it within the first 6 hours. Think about that for a moment. You've probably got food in the cabinet. Maybe some water. You feel reasonably prepared. But there are 12 specific items that vanish from store shelves faster than almost anything else the moment a power system goes down. And most of them have nothing to do with what you're imagining right now. The disappearance isn't dramatic. It doesn't announce itself. No sirens, no warnings. Things just quietly stop being available, one by one, before the majority of people even register that something has changed. And by the time you get to the store with a list in hand, the shelves that matter most are already stripped clean. Here's what makes this different from most survival content. We're not talking about the obvious things you'd plan for in advance. We're talking about the items that trip people up, the ones they assumed they had covered, or never even crossed their mind. And number 7 on this list is the one that consistently surprises people the most, even those who consider themselves prepared. So let's go through all 12. Starting from the bottom and working toward the most critical, because understanding the order matters just as much as understanding the items themselves. Item number 12, portable fuel. Small gas canisters, butane, propane. The thing that makes your food supply either useful or completely worthless. Here's a scenario that plays out more often than most people admit. The power goes out. You walk to your cabinet and you see it's reasonably stocked. Canned food, instant noodles, dry goods. Enough for several days. You feel a brief wave of relief. You did the right thing. You planned ahead. Then the first mealtime arrives. You reach for the stove. Nothing. You try the microwave. Dark. And one by one, you start running through every cooking method in your home, and every single one of them depends on electricity you no longer have. That relief turns into something else very quickly. This is one of the most common and most preventable preparation failures. People put genuine effort into stocking food and then forget entirely about the mechanism required to make that food edible. It's not a shortage of supplies, it's the neutralization of everything you already have. Water you can't boil becomes a risk rather than a resource. Food you can't heat becomes either unappetizing or genuinely unusable depending on what it is. The gap isn't in your pantry, it's in your ability to activate what's in your pantry. Think about a comment that circulates in preparedness communities constantly. Someone says they have more than enough food stored, but no way to actually heat it. And they only discovered that gap when it was too late to fix it. That moment of realization, the one that arrives when you're cold and hungry and the stores are already overwhelmed, is exactly what you want to avoid. A small portable camp stove and 2 or 3 backup fuel canisters completely change your situation. You can boil water, you can warm food, you can make something that actually feels like a meal instead of a survival ration. That distinction matters more than people expect, especially when you're managing stress and trying to make clear decisions. The practical step here is simple. Get a portable gas stove that doesn't require electricity. Test it before you need it. Make sure the valve works, the igniter clicks, the whole system functions as expected. Because a crisis is not the time for a learning curve, and once you have it, store it somewhere accessible, not buried under camping gear in the back of a closet. Somewhere you can get to it in the dark if necessary. You may have a cabinet full of food right now, but are you genuinely certain you can turn any of it into a hot meal without power? If there's any hesitation in that answer, you already know what to do. And once you've handled fuel, you'll start to understand why the next item, one that most people don't think of until it's far too late, changes the entire nature of how you handle everything else. Item number 11. A battery-powered or hand-crank radio. Most people don't lose their composure in a crisis because of what they're experiencing. They lose it because of what they don't know. When power goes out across a wide area, the internet follows quickly. Phone signals begin degrading within hours. Cell towers run on backup power, but that backup has limits. One by one, the towers go dark. Calls that went through an hour ago now drop or don't connect at all. Text messages queue up and don't deliver. And then a particular silence sets in, not just quiet, but informational silence. You don't know what's happening. You don't know where the problem is, how widespread it is, or when it might be resolved. That silence is more dangerous than people give it credit for. Without information, people begin making decisions based on assumptions. They guess at timelines. They guess at safety. They guess at whether to stay or go. And guessing during a crisis, when consequences are immediate and resources are limited, is one of the fastest ways to make a situation significantly worse. A hand crank or battery-powered radio costs very little. It requires no internet connection, no cell signal, no Wi-Fi, a few batteries or a few turns of a crank, and it connects you to emergency broadcasts, weather updates, evacuation instructions, and real-time reporting from people who know what's actually happening. That single piece of information, whether an area is safe, whether help is coming, whether you need to move, can be the difference between a manageable situation and a genuinely dangerous one. People who have gone through extended power outages consistently report the same thing. The radio wasn't just useful, it was the thing that allowed them to stay calm. Because calm is a resource too. When you know what's happening, you can think. When you're in the dark, literally and informationally, your brain starts filling in gaps with worst-case scenarios. So here's the question. If the power went out tonight and your phone stopped working in 3 hours, would you have any way to know what was going on outside your walls? Or would you be sitting in the dark, piecing together rumors from neighbors? A radio doesn't solve the crisis. It gives you the information you need to respond to it correctly. And when everything else is uncertain, that is an enormous advantage. Now let's talk about an item that almost no one thinks of, but experienced people consistently say is one of the first things they grab. Item number 10. Heavy-duty garbage bags. These are not glamorous, they don't sound critical. And that's exactly why they disappear so quietly and so early. While crowds are rushing toward water aisles and emptying battery shelves, a much quieter group of people is walking directly to the cleaning supply section. They're not buying one box of bags. They're buying rolls, multiple packs, and they're moving fast because they know what those bags can do. Stores don't stock large quantities of heavy-duty bags under normal circumstances. They don't need to. Turnover is slow. But in the first hours of a grid failure, the handful of people who understand the real utility of these bags can clear a section in minutes. By the time most customers are thinking about what else they might need, that shelf is bare. So what makes a garbage bag worth that kind of attention? A heavy-duty bag can serve as rain protection when you need to move through bad weather. It can be a ground layer for insulation when sleeping in a cold environment. It can function as a wind barrier in an improvised shelter. It can collect rainwater in a container. It can protect equipment and documents from moisture. And when sanitation systems fail, which they do during extended grid failures, it becomes one of the most practical tools you have for managing waste hygienically. One item, genuinely multiple functions, all of which become more valuable the longer a disruption continues. The practical takeaway is straightforward. Keep a few rolls at home. They store flat, they weigh almost nothing, and they have a shelf life that's essentially unlimited. You likely won't use them for emergencies on most days. But when the day comes that you need them, you'll understand immediately why the people who thought ahead went for them first. What would you do if you had to leave your home tonight in cold rain? with belongings you needed to protect. The bags are ready or they're not. Item number 9, manual can opener. There's an uncomfortable irony buried inside a lot of emergency food prep. People spend time selecting canned goods. They prioritize cans over fresh foods specifically because cans last, cans don't need refrigeration, cans are reliable. And then the power goes out, and those same people discover that their only can openers are electric. The food is right there, sealed, preserved, completely inaccessible. A manual can opener costs almost nothing. It takes up almost no space. And its value becomes absolute the moment the grid fails, and every electric appliance in your home becomes a decoration. This is also one of those items that disappears early from stores, not because everyone remembers it immediately, but because the small group of people who do remember it clean out whatever's available. A store might carry 20 or 30 manual openers on a normal day. In the first 2 hours of a widespread outage, that's gone. Keep one at home, keep a backup, and make sure everyone in your household knows where it is and how to use it. Simple preparedness that costs almost nothing and solves a problem that would otherwise be completely unnecessary. Item number 8. Flashlights and backup lighting. This one seems obvious, and yet it's still consistently absent from homes when it actually matters. The reason isn't that people don't know flashlights are useful. The reason is that most households own one flashlight somewhere, and that flashlight has dead batteries, or is buried in a drawer, or only one person knows where it is. When the power drops suddenly, the fumbling begins. And in darkness, fumbling is slow and sometimes dangerous. Candles are useful, but they carry fire risk, especially if children or animals are present, or if the outage lasts long enough that exhaustion starts affecting judgment. LED lanterns that can illuminate a room rather than just a narrow beam change the quality of life inside a home during an outage significantly. The practical approach is to have multiple light sources at multiple locations. A flashlight in the kitchen, one in the bedroom, one easily accessible near the main entrance. Batteries stored alongside them, not just nearby, but actually loaded in and checked periodically. Headlamps deserve special mention here. They seem minor until you're trying to do something useful with your hands while also needing light. At that point, a headlamp isn't a convenience. It's the only way to function efficiently. Are you confident you could move through your home safely and purposefully in total darkness right now? If the answer is anything other than yes, that's worth fixing before you need to. Item number 7. Medications and personal prescriptions. This is the one that consistently catches people off guard, even people who have thought carefully about most of the other items on this list. The supply chain for prescription medications does not buffer well against sudden surges in demand. And here's what happens in the first hours after a widespread grid failure. People who take daily medications start calculating how many days they have left, and then a significant portion of them go to pharmacies or stores at the same time, looking for over-the-counter alternatives or trying to fill prescriptions early. Pharmacies run on power. Their refrigeration for certain medications runs on power. Their dispensing systems run on power. Even those with generators face a backlog. They were never designed to handle simultaneously. Over-the-counter medications, pain relievers, antihistamines, antacids, cold and flu treatments move extremely fast because they serve the broadest population and don't require prescriptions. But that's also why they go first. The preparation here is not complicated, but it requires thinking in advance. Know exactly what medications you and everyone in your household takes regularly. Maintain at least a 2-week supply as a baseline. Talk to your doctor about this specifically. Many will work with you on it when you explain why. Keep medications stored properly, including being aware of any refrigeration requirements and having a plan for those. And for over-the-counter basics, keep a standing supply at home. The cost is minimal. The difference during an extended disruption is significant. If the power went out right now and stayed out for 2 weeks, what would run out first in your household? Whatever that answer is, that's your most urgent preparation gap. Item number 6. Cash and small bills. Digital payments fail when power fails, not partially, completely. Card readers go dark. ATM machines go offline. Even stores that manage to stay open with generators often can't process electronic transactions because their payment processing systems require internet connectivity they no longer have. And even if one terminal somewhere is working, the line to use it will be long. Cash becomes the universal language of exchange during a grid failure. And the stores that accept it run out of change quickly, which means the most practical version of cash in this context is small bills. Ones, fives, tens, not hundreds. No one can make change from a $100 bill when their register isn't running and they're counting manually. The amount you keep matters less than simply having some. A few $100s in mixed small bills gives you real options. You can buy what's available. You can compensate neighbors who might have something you need. You can handle basic transactions that would otherwise be impossible. People consistently underestimate this until the moment arrives when they're standing in a store with a phone that won't connect and a card that won't swipe and nothing in their wallet. This one requires no equipment, no special skills, no physical preparation space, just a decision to keep some cash accessible and to refresh it periodically rather than letting it sit depleted. What would you actually be able to purchase right now if every electronic payment system stopped working simultaneously? Item number 5. Batteries in multiple sizes. Batteries sit behind almost every non-electric backup system you could name. Flashlights, radios, clocks, portable fans, children's medical devices, some emergency communication tools. The entire ecosystem of battery-dependent devices only works if you have the right batteries in the right sizes. And batteries have a quiet disappearance pattern that's worth understanding. They don't vanish because there's a stampede for them. They vanish because a large number of people all purchase a moderate amount at the same time. And most stores don't carry the volume required to absorb that kind of demand. AA batteries are the most commonly needed, but not having the right size for a specific device is just as disabling as having no batteries at all. So the practical approach is to inventory your battery-dependent devices. Identify which sizes they require and stock accordingly, not just one pack, an actual meaningful reserve. There are also rechargeable battery systems worth considering. A quality rechargeable battery set with a manual or solar charger gives you a potentially renewable supply rather than a fixed one that depletes and can't be replaced once stores are empty. That distinction becomes very significant during a prolonged outage. Keep batteries in a cool, dry location. Check them periodically. Rotate stock when you use them. This is not complicated preparation, it's just consistent attention to something most people ignore until the moment it matters. Item number: water filtration. Bottled water is the obvious move, and it's genuinely useful. But it has a limit that most people don't think about carefully until it starts running out. A family of 4 using water only for drinking, no cooking, no hygiene, goes through roughly 8 to 12 bottles per day at minimum. At that rate, even a strong initial supply becomes insufficient relatively quickly. And once stores are emptied and you've consumed what you had, bottled water becomes unavailable. What keeps you hydrated beyond the initial supply is filtration. The ability to take water from a secondary source, a collected rainwater container, a stream, a stored barrel, and make it safe to drink. There are multiple filtration options at different price points. A simple gravity filter or pump filter can process large volumes of water from questionable sources and make them safe. A quality filter with a high capacity rating is more useful than a cheap filter with a low one. Ceramic filters, activated carbon filters, and membrane-based systems all have different strengths depending on what contaminants you're dealing with. Filtration tablets and chemical treatment drops are a cheaper, lighter option that still work. They don't remove particulates the way a physical filter does, but they handle biological contamination effectively, and they're easy to store in quantity. The combination approach is most practical. Maintain some bottled water for immediate use. Have a filtration method for when that runs out. And know where your nearest secondary water source is. You may have enough water for today. But how long does it actually last, and what happens after that? Item number 3. Ready-to-eat food, canned goods, instant noodles, shelf-stable snacks. Everyone knows they need food. Almost everyone believes they've handled this. And yet, in extended outages, this is consistently where cracks appear, not in having food, but in being able to sustain normal function while eating only emergency food. Here's the pattern. Day 1 is manageable. People eat reasonably well from what they've stored and feel functional. Day 2, appetite starts dropping, not hunger, appetite, the desire to eat the specific foods that are available. Day 3. Some people are eating noticeably less than their body needs, not because food is unavailable, but because their body and mind are resisting the monotony. That's not a weakness. That's human physiology responding to psychological distress. And it matters. Because inadequate nutrition compounds every other problem you're already dealing with. Fatigue increases. Decision-making degrades. Patience with others in your household shortens. Things that were manageable become sources of friction. The fix is variety, not volume. Buying more of the same thing doesn't solve the problem. Buying a range of flavors, textures, and types does. Mix salty and sweet. Include something that requires almost no preparation alongside things that need brief cooking. Add a few items that feel like a small luxury, not because you need luxury during a crisis, but because maintaining morale has genuine practical value. There's a useful exercise worth doing once. Try eating only emergency food for 2 full days under normal, comfortable conditions. You'll learn almost everything you need to know about whether your current supply actually works for your household, long before you're under any pressure. If you had to eat what you have stored right now for the next 3 days, how would that actually go? Item number 2. Electrolyte drinks. This surprises people, which is exactly why it's worth emphasizing. When you're under stress, moving more than usual, in an environment that's warmer than normal, or managing physical tasks that wouldn't normally be part of your day, your body loses more than water. It loses the electrolytes that regulate fluid retention, muscle function, and cognitive clarity. And here's the counterintuitive part. The more water you drink to compensate without replacing those electrolytes, the worse you can feel. Increasing fluid intake without electrolyte balance can actually accelerate the feeling of weakness, dizziness, and difficulty concentrating. Your body needs both water and the minerals that help it use that water effectively. This is not an edge case. It's a common experience during physically demanding or stressful situations. And the symptoms, mild dizziness, low energy, difficulty focusing, are easy to attribute to other causes. People assume they're tired, or that it's the stress, or that they just need to sleep. They keep drinking water and don't understand why they're not feeling better. A few bottles of an electrolyte drink in your preparation supplies address this gap directly. Gatorade works. Pedialyte works. Electrolyte powder packets work and take up almost no space. The goal is not to replace water, but to supplement it in a way that lets your body actually function at the level you need it to. When you're managing a difficult situation, your cognitive function and physical energy are not optional. They're the foundation that everything else rests on. Protecting them is not a luxury. You may think hydration is handled, but are you hydrating in a way that actually supports how your body works? Item number 1. A first aid kit and essential medications. Low light. Unfamiliar improvisation. Physical stress. People moving more quickly than usual through environments they haven't prepared for. All of these increase the frequency of minor injuries, cuts, scrapes, bruises, burns from cooking over an unfamiliar heat source, headaches from disrupted sleep. None of these are emergencies under normal circumstances. But under abnormal circumstances, with limited access to medical facilities, with pharmacies that may not be operational, even small, untreated problems accumulate into something that genuinely affects your ability to function. A cut that isn't cleaned and covered properly can become infected over the course of several days in conditions where hygiene is already compromised. A headache that under normal circumstances you'd address immediately becomes an hours-long distraction if you don't have what you need to treat it. These are not dramatic problems. They're friction, constant low-level friction that drains energy and attention away from everything that actually needs your focus. A well-stocked first aid kit removes that friction. Bandages, antiseptic, gauze, medical tape, over-the-counter pain relief, antihistamines, something for stomach upset. These are not expensive items. Collectively, they cost very little. But their absence during a stressful, compromised situation has a cost that's disproportionately large. The critical element is placement. A first aid kit stored in a closet you'd have to search for in the dark is not properly deployed. Keep it accessible. Keep it in a known location. Make sure everyone in your household knows where it is and what's in it. Go through it periodically and replace what's been used or expired. If something happened right now, a small cut, a burn from the portable stove you now have, a splitting headache at 2 in the morning, could you handle it immediately without disrupting anything else? The ability to handle small problems quickly and completely is not a minor thing. It's what keeps small problems from becoming large ones. Here's what ties all 12 of these items together. None of them are expensive. None of them require expertise or elaborate systems. What they require is attention in advance, a decision to think through the gap between what you have and what you'd actually need, made before the moment that decision becomes urgent. The reason these items disappear so fast from stores is not that they're rare, it's that everyone recognizes their value at the same time. The same realization, spreading across a community simultaneously, generates demand that no store is stocked to meet. And once they're gone, they're gone. The window to act is always before that moment arrives, not during it, not after it, before. What you're really building when you prepare these 12 items isn't a stockpile. It's the ability to stay calm, make clear decisions, and take care of the people around you when everything external becomes unpredictable. And that is worth far more than any individual item on this list. If any of this gave you something to think about, something you hadn't considered, or a gap you realized you hadn't addressed, consider leaving a like on this video. It genuinely helps get this information in front of more people who could use it, and it's the easiest thing you can do right now to make that happen. This is my channel, and we'll keep bringing you content that's practical, direct, and worth your time. The next video goes one step further. An actual attempt to purchase all 12 of these items after a grid failure event, and what that experience revealed about which ones were truly gone and which ones had any supply left. You'll want to see that one.